In the increasingly saturated Souls-like genre, now more than ever, it's important for new games entering to be able to set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. No Tree, the last song developed by Jayama Games, aims to do exactly that with their Sunlit Souls-like marketed as Summer Souls. So did they succeed? Let's find out in my review for the game. No Tree, the last song takes place between the 16th and 18th century during the Commedia dell'arte, which was a form of professional theater. A malevolent force called the Canavaccio has gripped the world in an eternal play. We, the player character, are a massless one who has not been given a role in this eternal play, and we must free the world from its stagnation. From the minute I saw clips from Inotia, I had a feeling it was going to be something special. The game doesn't have the same dreary and foreboding atmosphere that most Souls-like games have. As I said, it's very bright, colorful, sunlit environments, and the artistic and cultural aspects that are woven into the game are fantastic. So, right off the bat, just looking at the environments, it is already setting itself apart from most other Souls likes. After playing the demo in June, I was convinced that the game had good bones. As a lot of you may know, I spent a lot of time with the demo grinding and playing around with all the different things and started to put together some builds which panned out to be great once the full game released. If you've played any other Souls like, you'll immediately recognize all the standard stuff. You defeat enemies and bosses and gain currency, which is called Memoria in this case, and level up your stats to build your character up, rest at checkpoints, and then do it all over again. Weapons have scaling based on your stats, and your damage output will increase as you continue to get stronger throughout the game. Inotria sets itself apart from the rest with its build diversity and elemental rock, paper, scissors system. In regards to build diversity, you'll obtain different masks as you progress through the game, some of which are actually real characters from the Commedia dell'arte, and each of the masks offer different effects, such as doing more damage with heavy attacks or increased elemental power. You can have three loadouts or builds at a time, and each of these loadouts can have different weapons, mass aspects, which boost your stats, special abilities, consumables, and perks, which are essentially skill points you unlock as you defeat enemies. Elements and status effects play a large role in the game. As I mentioned, it's a rock, paper, scissors system. There are enemies and bosses scattered throughout the game that are aligned with certain elements, and you'll need to know what element to use against them for an edge in combat. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it certainly makes things easier. Not only that, but the status effects have positive and negative effects to both you, the player, and enemies. For instance, if you're afflicted with dizzy, this will cause your damage output to be increased as well as your stamina regeneration. However, your defenses are lowered. The status effects are something that really makes Enotria stand out from the rest of the pack. The game is a very parry centric game, much like Liza P. So if that isn't your cup of tea, just be aware of that. You can certainly get through the game being more dodge heavy, but it's very clear parrying is a huge mechanic, and personally, I felt that the parry window is pretty generous and not as tight as Liza P, and I just enjoy that type of play. In fact, I'd say Inotria is a Souls like that's a bit on the easier side. With certain builds, you can completely trivialize the game. The game does have an issue with poise, much like Liza P, and it's very inconsistent. There are items and perks that are supposed to give you hyper armor, or as the game calls it, super armor, but in my testing, it's very inconsistent. Whether it's charging up a heavy attack with a big weapon or casting one of your special abilities, sometimes you'll poise right through a hit, and sometimes you won't, and the same goes for the enemies and bosses as well. There's no real clear determination like what stage of the your animation you may get interrupted in, and that's why I'm saying it's pretty inconsistent. The music in the game is fantastic. Some of the boss soundtracks are absolute bangers. However, I wish there were more tracks because it seemed like a lot of the songs were reused in encounters, and I would have enjoyed some maybe some ambient music exploring throughout the world as well. As much of an extremely fun game this is to play, it unfortunately had lots of small bugs and performance problems at launch, and some are still present at the time of this recording. There are frame drops in certain areas, bugs where you can get stuck in or on the landscape. I feel like there needs to be some ledge protection on your Memoria as well, because if you fall off or get knocked off a ledge, you'll sometimes land on a tiny outcropping before falling to your death, and then your Memoria is gone for good, unless you have one of those items that'll warp you back to the checkpoint. The team is very hard at work on fixing the small issues in the game and has an entire roadmap of updates planned, which is based off feedback from the community and plans from the developers, such as the DLC. Despite the bugs and performance problems, I do feel there's plenty of replayability in the game. There's a plethora of weapons and builds to try out, and much like other Souls-likes, I can see plenty of challenge runs being done with the game. So going back to my original question, did Anotre the Last Song succeed in setting itself apart from the rest of the Souls-like genre? The answer is a resounding yes. Between the environments, build diversity, elemental system, and status effects, the game most certainly will be remembered in my opinion. Yes, there are currently bugs and performance problems, but I see that getting fixed in time, and in my opinion, that does not detract from the enjoyment that I had getting all the trophies except two of them that at the time of this recording are currently bugged, and that is across my four playthroughs of the game. With all that being said, I'm giving Anotria an 8.5 out of 10. With all the updates planned for the game, who knows, that score could go up in the future as well. So, what are your thoughts on the game? Have you played? Are you going to play? Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear from you guys. But that is going to do it for the review for Anotria the Last Song. So, hopefully, you're all doing well. Stay tuned. More coming at you. Take care.